It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Did you watch every NHL game last night? Of course not. That's impossible. So Locked On brings you Locked On Game-to-Game NHL. With Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, we take you inside every arena to every game and give you the Locked On local experts insight. And by the end, it's as though you were at every game. Find Locked On Game-to-Game NHL on the Locked On NHL feed and follow today. Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, taking you to every arena for every game with the local experts. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Can you hear it, people? The NHL trade deadline is fast approaching, and that means serious impacts on your NHL fantasy hockey squad. We're going to break it all down today with some of the teams that really need to make a move. Let's get right to it. Thank you for joining us for this Wednesday episode.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, big time Wednesday episode. And with the NHL trade deadline approaching, we need to take a look at some of the teams that really need to make a move before that deadline strikes in a lot of different directions, Steele. And I say fantasy impact, but there is fantasy impact abound over the next couple of weeks. Regardless of where you sit in the standings in your league, maybe dynasty or keeper, you want to position yourself nicely for the upcoming season. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Steele, we want to take a look at some of these teams that really do need to make a move, and for different reasons. But that means big-time implications for fantasy squads, because across the league, maybe some of these teams might not be making moves to make the playoffs this season, but they really need to position themselves nicely. We're going to talk about a bunch of franchises across the NHL and a bunch of different players. We're going to get to big-time bets. Let's get to it, though, my friend, because honestly, I really like this angle, and I have 5 teams. We're not doing a top 5 of any kind, but I have 5 teams, and honestly, a few need to make a move because they're right there on the doorstep of being competitive, and a couple need to make a move for the future. Who are you looking at? What teams are you looking at? What players are you maybe? We're going to talk a lot of hypotheticals here today, but it means a lot for these fantasy teams. Who are you looking at for some of these franchises that need to make a trade deadline move?
Well, for making a trade deadline move and looking to the future, as you just so put it right there, I'm looking at the Chicago Blackhawks that need to make some moves for their future, and it needs to be this year. It needs to be at this trade deadline. I don't think they are able to wait any longer on Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews. I think you get as much as they possibly can for both Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, prospects, picks, players that are ready right now and can fit into the group, because I know that they like Max Domi. I know that they like Andreas Athanasiou as well. So they want to keep those guys, but get as much as you can for guys like Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, obviously the big bucks. I know a lot of teams out there have been looking at Sam Lafferty, who's been very underrated as well. Third line centerman for the Chicago Blackhawks. Guys, teams and organizations are looking at Jake McCabe as a potential player to fit on the left or right side defensive pairing for their respective organization as well. So I think for the Chicago Blackhawks, this is the perfect time, with all the scandal that has happened over the last few years, the picks that they've lost, Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks, Jonathan Toews, the dynasty finally wrapping up, coming to an end. And it kind of wraps it all up with one of those guys or both those guys being traded before the deadline this year in the next 3 weeks. So I think they get as much in return as possible for Kane and Jonathan Toews and start rebuilding so you can be a legitimate threat in the next 4 or 5 years, however long it takes. But the sooner you do it, the sooner the sooner you'll be a threat in the league again.
There's some obvious salary implications that come along with both players.
Yes.
And actually now with Patrick Kane, injury implications with that hip that has now been around the league in the news rumor mill. So I think all eyes are on the Chicago Blackhawks. So nicely done for you to bring this up, because in the same vein, and I'll bring it up right now because this is very nicely tied together with two teams in the Arizona Coyotes and the San Jose Sharks. There are some big-time pieces that look very good for a bunch of competitors on both of those teams. And I'll get to the Sharks in a second because I think the implications actually loom rather large for that franchise over the Arizona Coyotes. But Shane Gostisbehere and Jacob Chychrun are maybe the two most talked about over the last couple of days in terms of the D-men steal that are going to be on the move ahead of this deadline. Edmonton, there's a lot of teams in the mix for both of those blue liners.
LA Kings as well.
Exactly. And actually, nice segue, they'll be on my competitive team list that need to make a move. But the Arizona Coyotes and the San Jose Sharks have a lot of very valuable pieces right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Timo Meier, Erik Karlsson, Jakob Chychrun, Shane Gostisbehere especially. I think if there's any player on these two teams that I expect to make a bunch of moves and need to for their future, I like Shane Gostisbehere to make a move steal. I don't see I know Erik Karlsson rumors to the Edmonton Oilers have picked up heavily. I see Shane Gostisbehere going to the Edmonton Oilers. So anyway, before I throw it back to you, I know I'm rambling on a little bit. Arizona, San Jose, right in the same vein as what you were just mentioning with the previous team. I think all of these players and franchises need to sell off the pieces that they can to get ahead on the future, whereas the next two teams I'm mentioning are right in there for the mix for maybe a good cup run steal and need to make additions. So I'm glad that we're rolling the same kind of attitude right here, right now, my friend. Hit me with your take on what I just said.
Yeah, honestly, I think you're exactly right. I think the Edmonton Oilers are probably it's more of a possibility, I want to say, for the Oilers to land Shane Gostisbehere over Chychrun. I think we've talked about this over the last week. I think it's
everyone's
possible.
talked about Jacob Chychrun, I think, for the last year still. Seriously,
it's been a while. He is everywhere. But I think it was last week when we were here with
Josh Wegman.
Josh Wegman of the Score. Thank you so much for that. When we were talking the conversation with him, I think it's more likely Jakob Chychrun probably ends up as an LA King, and Shane Gostisbehere probably ends up being an Edmonton Oilers. So I agree with that. I have a couple of teams that are going to be legitimate threats this year in the playoffs, as well as for very many, many years. But I do have one last team who I think is on the cusp. I think they're there. You and I have talked about the Ottawa Senators so much this season, especially in the offseason as well. But I truly believe when this team is fully healthy and they've got their guys in the lineup, they can be a legitimate threat to make the playoffs. I do still believe that the Senators are 1 or 2 moves away from being a top 10 team in this league soon. Just looking at the team as it sits right now, I'll throw Josh Norris in there because he's been injured all year and he's a big part of the top 6 group. But the top 6, you got Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, Alex DeBrincat, Claude Giroux, and Josh Norris. Solidified top 6. So good. So much talent up there. Then down the lineup, you've got Ridley Gregg, who's looked great this year when being called up. You've got Shane Pinto, Parker Kelly, a couple of entry-level contract guys, and guys who have made significant, they've done significant so far this season for the Senators. You've got Jake Sanderson on the back end, Thomas Chabot, Artem Zub. There's a lot of things and a lot of players to love on the Ottawa Senators. I think if there's 2 things that I would change, I think obviously if you're able, for the Ottawa Senators, of course, if you're able to move Nikita Zaitchev's contract, and again, with the LA Kings, kind of go for a Sean Walker, Matt Roy type of player, right shot defenseman to help you on the back end. That's what you got to do. If you can end up moving Zaitchev's contract to someone, that's the first thing. I think they need help on the blue line, especially on the right-hand side. And then lastly, with what I've seen so far this year with the goaltenders, I think you might need to change it up. I think one of them has to stay. I would rather, I know Cam Talbot's older, but I like Cam Talbot more than Anton Forsberg. Anton Forsberg's got the age going for him. That's
the 2
the big
injuries
thing.
just recently are
But
so hard.
I just think the 2 injuries, I don't think together they've been the best. I think you keep one of them and look on the market for another goalie, whoever it might be. But those are the 2 options for the Ottawa Senators that I think that they should be looking at for this offseason as well as their future. But again, they're 1 or 2 pieces away from being a top 10, top 12 threat in the league for many years.
So very quickly, I need to clarify. Do you mean they should be one of the teams here that we're talking about that need to make a move at the deadline? Or
Yes.
do you expect,
Yes.
Okay,
They need
like
to,
it.
yeah.
So you think that is the season still salvageable still? Do you think they can maybe make a run at a wild card?
I don't believe they make a run at the wild card just because, they're on like 3rd and 4th string goalies right now. And they've had so many injuries this entire season. I think it's going to be very difficult, but I still think they should be buyers and look for next year
to position themselves nicely.
Exactly.
Okay.
I don't see at any
just
point
needed to
why
clarify.
you wouldn't do that. Yeah.
I just needed to clarify because you're right. There is a lot to like about I can't give up on this Ottawa Senators team. And I just went ahead and said about this goaltending situation, Holmberg is going to get some shots in there. Stützle comes up with the 4-point night. You count them out and they score goals and they win games.
Yeah.
We're going to get to a bunch of other teams that need to maybe make a move. Toronto Maple Leafs are definitely going to be mentioned in that group for myself. But we need to get to our friends from FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the midway point of the NBA season. It's here. And it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your bet doesn't win. Just download FanDuel Sportsbook. It's safe, secure, super easy to use, and that's everything you need as a new-time bettor. When you get everything from the money line to the point scorers and threes drained from deep, you can bet on rebounds, double-doubles, triple-doubles. You can bet on the first 10 seconds. You can bet on everything on FanDuel, which is what I like to do, Steele. I even like to bet on who wins the tip, just because we like to get a little degenerate on these NBA markets. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. Don't miss your chance to get your first no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook and betting partner of the NBA.
This is Dane Lewis from the Locked On Stars podcast, here to let you know the following message brought to you by Discover. Did you know that you could reduce the number of unwanted calls and emails with online privacy protection, the latest innovation from Discover? Discover will help regularly remove your personal info, like your name and address, from 10 popular people search websites that could sell your data, and they'll do it for free. Activate in the Discover app and see terms and learn more at discover.com/online privacy protection.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you go hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip, and I appreciate all the love, all the support our listeners show us every single day in tuning into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day.
Boom.
Let's get back onto the topic here. We are of course going to be talking about big time bets at the end of the episode. But a few more teams that we think should be making trade deadline acquisitions. And that affects your fantasy team and your fantasy league. It's already done well for me. Vladimir Tarasenko gets traded to the New York Rangers. He pops off with Artemi Panarin. Bo Horvat gets traded to the New York Islanders. He pops off with the Islanders. So 2 guys have been traded on my fantasy team, and they have done significantly well with their new club. And that could happen for you as well. So we got to talk about a few of these teams. Flip, why don't we talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs? You and I are both
been a while.
Big fan. Yeah, we're big fans. It's been a while since we've really dug deep and talked about, the blue and white, the Buds over in Toronto. I know what I think the Maple Leafs should do, but I'll
Hit
throw
me.
it over to you. I want
Okay.
to hear your
Okay.
I want to hear your opinion first here on the Toronto Maple Leafs. What do you think that they need to do in order to get over the hump in that first round?
At the end of last season, I think I was very clear and adamant on this podcast that I can't sit through another off-season press conference with the same brass, and I really do like Sheldon Keefe. I think Kyle Dubas is a sharp NHL mind, and obviously Brendan Shanahan has earned his stripes, but I can't sit through another off-season press conference deal with them explaining a first-round exit. So for me, honestly, everything stops at getting past that first round. And I'm quite unsure now because of the way that the Leafs have gone about this year and playing pretty good, sitting in the top 5 in the NHL in standings, how we go about this at the NHL trade deadline. Because of course they do. If it's any other NHL franchise still, we're very excited as a fan base of how things have gone this year, right? The Toronto Maple Leafs have started to play a very defensive brand of hockey and stick to that end. Yes, there's been up and downs, but it really doesn't matter, does it? Unless we can, again, get past this first round. So I had to get that full preamble off my chest. I'll finish it with this deal. I think they need to be buyers. I think Kyle Dubas, if he wants to save his job, and I really do think he's on his way out the door if they don't do something in this playoffs, they need to make a little something go on. And I'm not sure how, because the salary cap is what it is. But I think there's some opportunity here for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make some noise. They've been linked to Jacob Chychrun. They've been linked to other pieces. In my opinion, Steele, they need to be buyers. They need to add at least a blue liner and at least a quality top 9 forward.
Yeah, exactly.
And see what they run with. That's where I'm at with the Leafs.
I'm exactly on the same page with you here, Flip. I think literally the two things I have written on my notes are 3 players I have in mind, and need a depth forward and a right defenseman. I think they do need help on the right side.
They need some help.
I have been fairly impressed with Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin this year. Obviously Connor Timmins on the back end, but it looks like Jake Muzzin's out and he's not returning for the remainder of the season. He won't be back. And they're going to need help. They're going to need a tougher defenseman. So, maybe, the amount of times the Maple Leafs have a good relationship with the Anaheim Ducks. Maybe you go out and get a John Klingberg. You can get a little bit money retained. You send a couple of picks or, a pick or a prospect over to Anaheim, which they need right now. And maybe you go out and get John Klingberg. Also a depth forward, Ryan O'Reilly, which has been linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. He would be a great third line center right now.
I would love Ryan O'Reilly, Steele. And absolutely. Very quickly, actually, not to jump in, what would you think about Travis Konechny? I say Kyle Dubas kick some tires on Travis Konechny. I don't think he's out there as one of those pieces, but when I look at this lineup, they need to win now, Steele. They need to win now. And Travis Konechny, in my opinion, is one of those guys who plays with edge that could fit in nicely. And I know I'm throwing curveballs at you now, but that's a player that I'm looking at. Although that connection to the Ducks, I like where you're headed.
Yeah, they have a really strong connection with the Ducks. I'm not sure about Travis Konechny. I just don't see the Philadelphia Flyers giving up on him. That's just me literally
kicking tires. I think they value him too.
They value him way too high, and for good reason.
And he's had such a good season.
Yeah, good season. But
anyway,
I've been fairly impressed with. I've been fairly impressed with Pierre Engvall this year. I think he's been actually a lot better than last year. Pontus Holmberg's been great. I don't think Zach Astor-Reese or Joey Anderson or even recently Calle Yarncroke has done a lot. So I think they need to fill out the bottom 6, more specifically the third line on the wing. So those are the 2 options for myself for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Last team that I think is one move away from being a legit threat for many years before we get to big time bets. The New Jersey Devils. And we've talked about this. This is a little bit of a broken record. I'm repeating myself here, but
I'm glad you brought this up because I think I have a bit of a different take. So hit me with yours.
I truly believe that if the Devils can go out and get Timo Meier and lock him up for 6-7 years, they will be a legit threat in the Metro as well as just the NHL for so long. And from what you and I and what everyone else has seen from Jack Hughes this year, when he is healthy, he is a top tier superstar in this league. Like when he plays, he's amongst the best in the league right now. Like, obviously, I'm not throwing up with him with Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon or Austin Matthews, but he is in a tier probably below.
We're talking the 1B tier.
Yeah.
We're not talking 1A. We're talking 1B. This guy's a 40, 50 goal scorer.
He is in that tier regardless. When he is in the lineup and healthy, I love Dougie Hamilton on the blue line. I think the blue line for the Devils is absolutely incredible. I think they've got a couple of guys like Andre Palatz is being returned from injury. He's been great. Again, so many other guys. But I think if the Devils can go out and get Timo Meier, that makes them a legitimate threat.
So, when I came on to the episode today, it was the teams that need to make a move at the deadline. And this is interesting because I had the Devils on my list too, because they've just been also so involved with all the rumors and that good that why would you not try and piece together a special season when you have it going? And out of nowhere, really, Steele, we didn't expect the Devils to be this good this quick. We knew they were going to be good with all the young pieces and such and a balanced blue line. But to me, I think they don't need to make a move because they're going to be so good over the next couple of years. And the reason I say this, and I'll finish it at this with the Devils very quickly before I have one other team, is if Jack Hughes isn't healthy, Steele, I don't think they need to make a move right now. Jack Hughes is so important to the success of this team. Is if he's really injured, like they say week to week right now, if he's out week to week, maybe even a month, I don't know if you want to risk a big piece and take a shot this season if you're not going to have your best guy. But if he's back, I'm with you. And very quickly, it's the Edmonton Oilers. They need to make a move. They need to make a move to make sure that they're in the mix again this year. It's already clear they're going with Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell as goaltenders. I don't know how a lot of people feel about that. I don't feel the greatest.
They can't look back now. They got to roll with it.
But they're in the mix for Erik Karlsson now. They're in the mix for a couple of these blue liners. I forget. And Jakob Chychrun as well, Steele. To me, Edmonton Oilers definitely need to make a move. You and I need to make a move over to big time bets. But I'll say this. Keep it tapped to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast because we're going to have a lot more trade deadline coverage for you in the lead up to deadline day.
Yeah, and make sure you keep it tapped as well over with Built Bars. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious, healthy treat, then you need to go right now and try some Built Bars. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier this year, but don't want to compromise the taste, then man, oh man, do I have the thing just for you. You got to try Built. And with Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think they're good for you, but they are actually the perfect snack before or after the gym. That's when I like to take it, before or after the gym. And what makes Built Bar so good, I say this every time because it's so true, covered in 100% real chocolate, right up my alley. It is absolutely amazing. And they come also in unbelievably amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And now you don't even need to wait around and get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars on Built.com. Now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick up a box from the pharmacy section. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. And you can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Go grab some Built Bars, and you'll definitely thank me later.
Hi, this is Walker Mayo, one of the local hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Instead of hearing me right now, we could be talking about your business and helping you reach local, passionate sports fans just like yourself. Unlike any other podcast, Locked On gives your local company the unique ability to reach local podcast listeners. If your business wants to connect with local sports fans that are well-educated with disposable income, then let's put your company right here on this Locked On podcast. Local fans love to support local businesses. Text the word advertising to 33777 or visit lockedonpodcast.com/advertising and let us know who you are. Our team will assist you to achieve advertising success with Locked On. Once again, text the word advertising to 33777 or visit lockedonpodcast.com/advertising. We look forward to hearing from you.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free. We are available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love, all the support our listeners show us every single day. Again, Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And we come with the fire picks for big time bets right now. Flip.
Yep.
I am feeling a little spicy for my big time bets.
Then you need to take it away because here, hold on. Very quickly before you get to that. Thank you for preambling very nicely with the spiciness, because last week after the All-Star break, you have to really kind of beware of this betting stretch of the schedule. As I said with the fantasy stretch, you need to really manage this next couple of weeks very properly for your bankroll and for your fantasy squad. And I think we've seen it with some very back and forth, up and down games and some tough schedules. So let me just preamble it with that. And I'm glad you're saying you're getting spicy, because this is the opportunity to get spicy before I really think, Steele, a bunch of the teams that are going to separate themselves from the pack start dusting away teams, and you're not going to get good odds. So if you're trying to get spicy, which I think that's what you're preambling here, now's the time to strike. Hit me with some picks. I'm ready to make some money. And yeah, I'm fired up. I'm sorry for everyone listening on loud volume right now. I'll tone it down.
I will throw all three of my picks your way, actually.
Let's go.
I'll start off with my first pick of the night. Oilers on the puck line against the Detroit Red Wings. They won 5-2 against the Red Wings last week, Tuesday, February 7th. I think they do it again in that type of fashion. Also, 3 of their last 5 games they've gone over the number, but also they've won by more than 2 goals in 3 of those 5 last matchups. So I'm going to take the Oilers on the puck line against the Detroit Red Wings. Second pick of the night. I'm also taking the Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line against the Arizona. You know how a couple days ago you and I were looking at the matchups and we're like, I don't like any of these? Well, I am the complete opposite for today's matchups. I'm back. I love
Puck line King is back.
I'm back, baby, and I love these matchups. Second pick of the night, I'm taking the Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line against the Arizona Coyotes. I quickly just want to bring up the Lightning schedule real quick, but they have been great recently, and they're scoring goals. I don't know what their last game or record is against the Arizona Coyotes. 3-1 win the other day against the Dallas Stars. 5-0 win against the Colorado Avalanche. 5-2 win against the LA Kings. 3-2 win against the Boston Bruins. 4-2 win against the Wild. It goes on. They're winning games by more than 2 goals right now.
A 5-3 win against the Arizona Coyotes on New Year's Eve only a month ago.
Perfect.
So you're on to something here.
I'm on to something right here. I'm going with the puck lines tonight. Oilers puck line, Lightning puck line, and my lock of the night, Toronto Maple Leafs on the puck line against the Chicago Blackhawks. 3 puck line bets for tonight. I love these matchups. Look, going heavy favorites, but on the puck line, you're going to get some good juice there.
And like I said, the time to get spicy is now, because as much as, yes, there will be some interesting up and downs, but there are also going to be a bunch of major opportunities to hammer some of these good teams and in some good spots. And thank you for bringing up this Detroit at Edmonton situation, because that's where I'm going with my first pick. And I think you said a little something about if my headphones are working all right. You said a little something about high-scoring games between these two. And when I look at the last 4 games between these two teams, not between these two, Vancouver, Detroit produced all over 14 goals over the last 2. The Edmonton Oilers have produced in their last 2 games over 17 goals. Yeah. I'm going over, baby. This is going to be a little bit of a race, I think. I'm going to say 5-3 Edmonton Oilers. My predictions on the total scores have been up and down since I've been hot. That's my first one. Both teams have been involved in a lot of high-scoring games still. Detroit at Edmonton over 6.5 at -125 right now. Also, I'm loving that. And yeah, I'm going to come with the Heat with the next 2. The Vancouver Canucks are garbage. The Vancouver Canucks are garbage. They are a really bad team.
Yes.
They've been a bad team for a while, and we've been calling it for a while, and now the pieces are really starting to fall. Colin D'Elia, no disrespect. I don't speak in this cadence, but it's bad in Vancouver, people.
Yeah.
Bail out. Don't even look at it. Don't look at it for props. Don't look at it for over-unders.
Go get yourself some Anthony Beauvillier.
Hey, okay, maybe, but that's fantasy. But for betting, you're looking at it one way.
Yes.
Either puck line or money line, and tonight it's the puck line. The Rangers are going to smash the Canucks.
Yep.
They're already fired up, and I think the Rangers are going to add another piece. And honestly, Steele, I didn't want to give it away because I wanted to do an episode where we start talking about our favorite Stanley Cup bets as we get closer to the playoffs. The Rangers are about to take a whole bunch of my money for the Stanley Cup, and I don't want to jinx it, but I think they're going to make another move. I really do, and they weren't on the list of today's need to make a move clubs, but I think they do, and the Rangers are going to dust aside the Canucks tonight on the puck line, plus 135. That might drop, but my lock of the night, Steele, you know I've had success with John Tavares lately on the prop bets.
Yes.
He stepped up in the absence of Austin Matthews. And the Toronto Maple Leafs need to bounce back in a big way from an embarrassing performance against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They can't, honestly, bear to lose two bad games against the Chicago Blackhawks and Columbus Blue Jackets. And John Tavares went pointless against the Blue Jackets on Saturday. He doesn't usually put up back-to-back really bad performances. He wasn't good on Saturday. Give me the John Tavares. I'm not copping out with the anytime point steal. Give me the John Tavares anytime assist. You're going to get a good odd for it. He's been on a heater, 30 assists this season. Give me Johnny T, the captain for the Maple Leafs. In what I think I agree with you, a big bounce-back night for the Leafs in general. I'm done talking now, but John Tavares anytime assist, that's my lock of the night. Let's go, Steele.
I absolutely love all three of our picks here. Definitely throwing all six of these into one team parlay and get some money going for Wednesday night. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are available Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today. Did you watch every NHL game last night? Of course not. That's impossible. So Locked On brings you Locked On Game-to-Game NHL. With Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, we take you inside every arena to every game and give you the Locked On local experts insight. And by the end, it's as though you were at every game. Find Locked On Game-to-Game NHL on the Locked On NHL feed and follow today. Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, taking you to every arena for every game with the local experts. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Walker Mayo, one of the local hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Instead of hearing me right now, we could be talking about your business and helping you reach local, passionate sports fans just like yourself. Unlike any other podcast, Locked On gives your local company the unique ability to reach local podcast listeners. If your business wants to connect with local sports fans that are well-educated with disposable income, then let's put your company right here on this Locked On podcast. Local fans love to support local businesses. Text the word advertising to 33777 or visit lockedonpodcast.com/advertising and let us know who you are. Our team will assist you to achieve advertising success with Locked On. Once again, text the word advertising to 33777 or visit lockedonpodcast.com/advertising. We look forward to hearing from you.